What is the difference between repetition without array and repetition with array? What is array? An array is a data structure containing a number of data values which are of same data type. An array is used to store multiple data of the same data type which can be retrieved to be used later. The array elements are accessed through the index. Declaring and creating array. To use an array in a program, you must declare an array variable and specify the array's data type. Here is the syntax for declaring an array variable. The data type could be integer, float, double, character, boolean, and string, and all elements in the array must have the same data type. After an array variable is declared, you can create an array by using the new operator and assign its reference to the variable. Or you can declare and create an array in one statement. For example, the following statement declare an array named Mark creates an array of 5 elements of double data type and assigns its reference to Mark. To assign value to the element, here is the syntax. Array name index equal to value. In array, index must start with 0. At index 0, the value for the first element is 85.5. At index 1, the value for the second element is 90.1. The value here is depend on the data type that you had declared. If you declared the data type as double, all the value in the element must be in double. In conclusion, to assign value to the elements, first you have to declare and create an array, then only you can assign the value to the elements. How to input values into array elements by user. Here is an example of program that allow user to input values into array elements. To input values into array elements, first you have to declare and create an array. Second is to use a for loop or while loop. Normally we use for loop. Third is to write input statement with index variable in a for loop. To input values into array elements, first you have to declare and create an array. Second, to use a for loop or while loop. In repetition, basically you can use for loop or while loop. For loop or while loop is used because it allows user to input value repeatedly. To input value to array element, normally we use for loop. You need to remember the way to read for loop is to follow the way to read while loop. The difference between these two loops is the way to write the syntax. Let me explain the syntax of both these loops. First is a for loop. A for loop has a concise syntax for writing loops. The for loop statement starts with the keyword for, followed by a pair of parentheses enclosing the control structure of the loop. This structure consists of initialization, condition, and update counter. The control structure is followed by the loop body enclosed inside braces. Next is the while loop. The while loop statement starts with initialization, the keyword while to start the loop, condition. The control structure is followed by the loop body enclosed inside braces, and update counter before the close brace. Next, to write input statement. The input statement must be in a loop body so that it allows user to input value repeatedly. To write input statement in array, you have to add index variable that is indicated with bracket. I will guide you on how to write a program segment that allow user to input 5 students marks into an array named mark. Assume the scanner object created is obj. Here is the steps. First, you have to declare an array named mark. Create an array of 5 elements that hold double value since the marks is in decimal point. Second is to use for loop. The first structure is initialize. Before you initialize, you have to name the control variable. I name it as index. You can name anything as long as it is a valid identifier. You need to remember that in array, the control variable represents index. The initial value must be 0 because it represents index. In array, index must always start with 0 and must be in integer data type. You can declare the variable name index in for loop. Next is condition. Since the question asks you to input 5 students mark, so the end value should be 5, and 5 here represent the size of array. And you have to use the operator less than because the initial value start with 0. And followed by update counter. Last step is to write an input statement with index variable in a for loop body. You can also declare an index variable outside the for loop. Instead of writing the value that indicate the size of array, you can use length attribute. By using this, it will automatically find the number of elements in array, and the syntax is arrayname.length. Here is on how to construct a dash check table from a Java program segment. You must start with initialization. Second is condition, followed by a statement in a loop body. Lastly is update counter. You need to remember that the way to read structure for is to follow the way to read structure while. This is how data is stored in computer memory when user input values into array elements.